The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is November 13, 2024, and it's been 10 days since I last made an update video on the situation within Ukraine. And if you want to know why I've been gone that long, it's because, well, one, we in the United States literally just had a huge election in which we saw the return of Donald Trump to office. And also, I wanted to know what was going on in the congressional races too. But fortunately now, the election campaign or season is over. Not only did the Democrats lose control of the White House, they also lost control of both chambers of Congress. The Republican Party was able to flip around 4 seats or so from the Democrats. And going into January, they're going to have a pretty nice lead, control over the Senate with 53 to 47 seats. Though I will say it is pretty interesting, though, that some of the states that did vote for Donald Trump in 2024 did also vote for Democrats down ballot. Like, for example, Josh Stein, he won the governor's race in North Carolina by 14 points. Ruben Gallego, he beat Kari Lake by a couple or so points. Jackie Rosen is returning to Washington, along with Tammy Baldwin and some lady, I guess, in Michigan. But you get the point. The thing is, Donald Trump has a very interesting road ahead of him going into 2025 when he returns to power. And one of the big questions that people are wanting to ask is, what the hell is his policy on Ukraine? Will he be hawkish? Will he be pacifist? Will he be like middle of the road or something? It's too early to say. But as far as the picks are concerned, I feel like, again, it's not quite certain. Because for one, his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he's like 44 years old. And he was just nominated and picked to be his Secretary of Defense. He kind of gave a mixed signal on Russia. Yeah, we got to contain it. But at the same time, though, why are we investing all this money into Ukraine? Mike Waltz, who's going to be the National Security Advisor, some people are comparing him to John Bolton. And of course, that is not good news. If you are a pro-peace person, pro-Russia person, he's not good news. But here's the thing. In 2022, he initially did support the U.S. arming of Ukraine against Russia. But a year or so later, he started to change his mind. And nowadays, he seems to be, I don't know if he's really on the fence anymore, or he has now completely became, anti-Ukraine within the U.S. government. But yeah, he has a D- on Republicans for Ukraine. It's like a little site where you can check the, what the stances are from each, Republican congressman. What they think of Ukraine. Did they fund Ukraine or something like that? I mean, you get the big picture. But yeah, with Waltz, it's not really 100% certain, along with Hegseth. But we just got some news that's definitely going to shock some people. And one of them really surprised me. Actually surprised me. Matt Gaetz was announced as the nominee for Attorney General. He's anti-Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard was announced as Director of National Intelligence. She's also anti-Ukraine. And Marco Rubio, he used to be super pro-Ukraine, but now he's starting to realize that this war may not be worth it after all. He's I guess middle of the road nowadays, even though he used to be super pro-Ukraine. But yeah, it's too early to say on what direction the Trump administration is going to go in when it comes to the issue of Ukraine. But if I had to guess what he's going to do, it's that he's definitely going to try to get Ukraine to concede territory in return for Russia stopping the whole war. But I feel like that's not going to happen. I feel like he's being dealt a very bad hand from Joe Biden. I feel like in 2025, what's more probable to happen is that he's going to see that neither Russia or Ukraine are worth talking to, like they both don't want to listen, and then he'll just flat out abandon this whole quagmire, and then it will allow Russia to steamroll Ukraine, because we all know Europe can't support Ukraine by itself. They just won't. But time will tell what will happen. We still got 2 months left of Joe Biden, and until then, all remains to be seen. So, let's get to the front line, shall we? First of all, we're going to talk about the Zaporozhye/Southern Donetsk direction, okay? Some big surprises in the last 10 days in this direction. The Russians have started their counter-offensive in the Zaporozhye/Southern Donetsk direction. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with this part of the front, this is what I would like to call the Velika Novosilka front, okay? Last summer, the Ukrainians advanced on this very front, and they managed to basically take, I guess, like everything here, and it was considered to be the only part of the Ukrainian counteroffensive last year that had any sort of success. But even then, it didn't achieve its goal, which was reaching the Azov Sea. But in recent times, the Russians recently started an offensive in this area. I don't know how big it is, but they have recaptured the villages of Rivinopol and are on the brink of capturing Novodorivka. And after that, they will then enter Donetsk Oblast from the south. Russians are also closing in on the border as well with Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. So once they capture Novodorivka and Rovnopol, then here's the thing. I don't honestly expect Ukrainians to really put up a heavy fight for most of these villages. I mean, they're not even that urban, or there is like no freaking like terrain to really support them. I mean, they're cooked in that area. They really are. But yeah, as soon as these villages are cleared, the Russians will not only be bordering Zaporozhye from the eastern direction, but they're also now going to be able to border Dnipropetrovsk Oblast right here. I expect the Russians to not enter it just yet, but they definitely will in 2025. The first quarter, that is. And also, by taking these villages here, they are mostly encircling Velika Novosilka. It is now cut off from not just the south, but it's also now cut off from the eastern direction too. So the only way out for any Ukrainians that are still in the town of Velika Novosilka is from, like, to the northern direction, okay? So they now have to leave Velika Novosilka. It's slowly but surely turning into another cauldron. Or, as Calibrated would say, a hot pocket. But yeah, all signs are indicating that literally by next month or so, it is very likely, by the way, that Velika Novosilka is going to fall to Russia. They're cooked in this direction. They really are. Now, also, in other news, the Russian advance in the direction of KURAKHOVE has gotten far, far bigger and faster and worse for the armed forces of Ukraine. The Russians have basically gained more areas north and west of Bogoyavlinka, and have also locked down control of Maximivka as well. Russians have also captured completely, well, for the most part, the village of Antonivka, and have also cleared the road going from Mariinka to Ugledar. So, if Russians want to get supplies now from Mariinka to Ugledar, they now absolutely can with no issues. Literally, this entire road here, for the first time in the entire war, is now cleared by the Russians. They can now use it without any issues going from north to south, and can also supply themselves even further for an offensive towards Zaporozhye Oblast and Dnipropetrovsk. The fall of Ugledar every day is looking more and more consequential, despite the fact that some Ukraine fanboys didn't think that way. I mean, they thought the same thing about Avdiivka. They thought the same thing about Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut, which, I mean, or Artyomovsk. I'm sorry. They thought the same thing about Selidova. They thought the same thing about Novogradivka, Ukrainsk, all of it. And also, they're having problems in Toretsk too. But I'll get to that later. But anyway, so let's look at what's going on in Kurakhove itself. So, as you guys know, the offensive is going on from the southern direction, but it's also going on from the eastern direction. And just recently, the Russians have completely broken into Kurakhove and now control a big chunk of it. They are on the brink of taking control of over like 40 to 50% of the town of Kurakhove itself. And there are rumors speculating that they already have seized the eastern parts of Kurakhove and are about to begin their assault on the main part of the town, which includes all these commie blocks here. Now, as soon as the Russians capture the village of Downinji, then Kurakhove is cooked. And also, another thing I want to mention is Ilinka and Stepanivka have also fallen to Russia, so now the Russians can easily bomb, like, Kurakhove from the north. And it's only a matter of time before the village of Biritsky and also the far northern areas here in Novo Ilinka also fall to Russia. By the way, Novo Ilinka, is considered to be part of Kurakhove. So that would be another chunk of the town that falls to Russia. And also, Russians have also reportedly taken half control over the village of Santinsivka. And if they're able to take this, then it is only a matter of time before basically every single path in and out of Kurakhove is taken under Russian fire control, which would in turn encircle and besiege the entire town. The Ukrainians seem to know this, and they're panicking. In fact, this just in from the town of Kurakhove itself, a dam that is like connected to the Volcha River was recently just blown up. And as a result, a lot of water is flowing through these areas here. And with this happening, it already signals to me that the battle for Kurakhove has already been decided. It's going to fall to Russia. There's nothing the Ukrainians can do about it. And, even worse for them, once Kurakhove falls, there's basically nothing really stopping the Russians from entering Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. From the southern direction, by the way. And there's also nothing stopping them from also beginning the process of encircling and flanking the city of Pokrovsk, which, by the way, is being fortified to hell right now by the Ukrainians. But I don't know if anything like what they're doing right now is going to even matter once the whole place is encircled. I just don't think they're going to really be fighting too much for this city next year when the time does eventually come. I mean, if anything, I think it's going to go the same way as Novogradivka and Selidova. Once Pokrovsk is mostly encircled and turned into a cauldron, they're just going to leave. It's that simple. I do think we might see a battle for Mayanograd, but Pokrovsk, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, it is not looking good for the Ukrainians in this direction. Not at all. And probably by the end of 2024, all of this, like Velika Vasilka, Kurakhove, and everything going up to the Dnipropetrovsk border will be under control by Russia. Russia's going to take everything here and here by the end of the year, which should give them around 70 to like 75% of Donetsk Oblast in eastern Ukraine. As you can imagine, this is a disaster. A big disaster. Now, in Toretsk, the Ukrainians, for quite some time, have been able to push the Russians out of the southern neighborhoods in Toretsk city, but it appears the Russians are making a comeback here. And they have so far taken some houses or commie blocks here on the far eastern part of the Zabolka district. But other than that, though, it's not really anything too special, at least yet. The Russians are also making progress in downtown Toretsk, so keep an eye on this too. And there was even reports that the Ukrainians had counterattacked in Druzhba, even though it's kind of pointless. There's also reports that the Russians have also assaulted Toretsk from this direction here, from these commie blocks. But yeah, that will do it. I also heard reports that the Russians have once again crossed the Sovietsky Donetsk Canal and have gained a foothold in the southern areas. But it's not yet confirmed. No movement within Chasiv Yar, so we're going to have to wait for that until that concludes. And also, in the past 10 days, Vimka and Ivano-Dorivka are firmly back under Russian control. So once again, Siversk is within sight. But it's too early to say. The Russians got to take all the high grounds first before they can even think about Siversk. And this is not an opinion of mine. This is the truth. Bilogrivka is still in a gray zone. Grigorovka is also still in a gray zone. And yeah, that will be it for the Siversk front. As for the Liman front, or the Kupiansk front that is, the Russians have made very interesting gains in the village of Terny. And it looks like, at long last, the Russians' problems in Terny are going to be coming to an end very soon. They control around 60%, if not like half of the village at least or so. And it seems like Terny is on the brink of falling to Russia. And once Terny falls, then they're definitely going to attack Yampolivka next. And that will basically be it. That will basically help the Russians stage for an assault on perhaps Zarichny, Torsk, and yes, or Torsky, and yes, Liman. But too early to say. I honestly don't think Liman's going to be activated again until next year in 2025. The Russians are definitely going to return to a lot of places that they lost during the September 2022 counteroffensive. Next year, in 25, I'm definitely expecting that. But I don't think a lot of action is going to happen in Donetsk Oblast next year as much as it did this year. Instead, I think the action will start shifting slowly but surely to Kharkov or Kharkiv Oblast in northeastern Ukraine. And what I think will happen is the Russians are going to focus more on not just clearing the Oskar River, but they're also going to start focusing on perhaps doubling down and beginning their full-blown return to Kharkiv Oblast. That's what I think they're going to do. And also, speaking of which, we should definitely do talk about the Kharkiv direction. The Russians have, for one, have locked up this village here. I mean, at least Syriac still has this part under a gray zone, but other than that, it's pretty much over. Persho Trabinivi. And also, the Russians have also begun an assault towards Lazova, and it is now confirmed that the Russians have seized complete control over two villages on the left bank of the Oskar River. That is Kolesnikivka and Krylievkivka. Sorry if I got that incorrectly pronounced, but they have captured two of these villages, which pretty much screws everybody in this giant pocket. And speaking of which, breaking news coming out of Kupiansk direction, the third battle of Kupiansk has already started, and with the use of trucks, military vehicles, etc., the Russians have begun the advance towards Kupiansk itself, and as far as I know, they're already back in the city, in the industrial zone areas, and are looking to establish a foothold there. I don't know any further news about what's going on in Kupiansk, but all I can say is that the third battle for the town has started, and it's definitely going to take a while before the Russians are able to completely take control of it. I have also heard reports that the Ukrainians have fled the left bank of the Oskar River, but it's not confirmed yet, and I honestly don't think it's true. But yes, third battle, Kupiansk, is on, and it does not look good for the Ukrainians at all. And by the way, just in case if you're wondering, there are no changes in Volchansk, so we can skip that. And last but not least, let's talk about Kursk. The Russians have started another counteroffensive, rumoredly with North Korean troops, though I don't honestly think that is true yet. At least, well, we don't literally have any full-blown evidence to confirm it, like verified evidence. But what we do know is that the Russians do, in fact, have control over a few areas after the start of their counteroffensive in the Kursk direction. They have retaken control over the village of Pogribki. They have also retaken control over Orlovka, Novaya Sorichna, or Sorochina. And then further south, they have also taken most of the areas near the border with the Sumy Oblast, including the village of Plikovo, even though they still got to clear this out. But it's probably going to be cleared by tomorrow or so. But then they got to cross this river here and try to take the village of Guivo. But other than that, though, it looks pretty certain that the fate of Suja is pretty much decided, and the Ukrainians simply just cannot cope with this new Russian counteroffensive, which is probably going to result in them either withdrawing or them looking to, for Zelensky's ego, putting in more reserves here because Zelensky is crazy. But yeah. So yeah, that is the evening report, everybody. So I hope all of you enjoyed today's video. Comment below if you like. Tell me about what you think of the situation. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Wish my country a lot of luck because we're going to go through a lot of crazy stuff in the next 4 years. And let's hope that we do, in fact, see an end to the Russo-Ukrainian war next year. So yeah. Have a great day, everybody. And I'll see you all on Sunday. Take care and peace out. Bye.